In 2025, the United States is witnessing a major shift, with millions of tourists rethinking their travel plans and canceling trips. The question on everyone's mind is, why are so many turning their backs on the land of opportunity? From rising costs to safety concerns, Americans are also feeling the pressure, with many searching for new homes, both within the U.S. and abroad. But what's really driving this change? Is it the economic pressures, the uncertain political landscape, or something deeper that's prompting both locals and travelers to look for a fresh start? Today, we dive into the reasons behind this massive movement. Are we witnessing the beginning of a new era where America no longer holds the same allure it once did? Stay tuned as we explore the challenges and decisions shaping the future of the American dream. Do you think the U.S. is losing its appeal for tourists and citizens alike? If you agree, comment 1. If not, comment 0. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support our channel. Now let's dive into this story and uncover the truth behind the shift. One of the main reasons international tourists are no longer as eager to visit the U.S. as before is due to changes in travel and security policies. After the events of September 11th, airport security regulations and immigration control measures were tightened, making many tourists uncomfortable when traveling to the U.S. Additionally, the trade war between the U.S. and major countries like China has led to political tensions that have reduced confidence in the tourism environment here. Moreover, the COVID-19 pandemic has completely transformed the way we travel. Border closures, health check regulations, and the fear of virus transmission have led many people to postpone or cancel their trips to the U.S. Another important factor is the rising costs at U.S. tourist destinations. Compared to other places, traveling to the U.S. has become much more expensive, from airfare and accommodation to entertainment services. This has made many tourists feel that the U.S. is no longer their top choice when they can explore other countries with more reasonable costs. While international tourists have decreased, another trend is emerging. Americans are starting to look for cheaper housing or retirement options abroad. Historically, the U.S. has been the country many people from other nations dreamed of living in, but now Americans are seeking to leave. Countries like Canada, Mexico, and others in South America have become popular destinations for Americans looking for a lower cost of living. The main reason for this shift is the rise in inflation, difficulties in finding affordable housing, and economic instability domestically. Moreover, with the rise of remote work, many Americans have realized they can work from anywhere in the world without having to live in expensive cities like New York or San Francisco. This has fueled the migration wave of Americans seeking countries with lower living costs, but still maintaining a good quality of life. The decrease in international tourists and the increase in American migration abroad has put the U.S. tourism industry under significant pressure. Reports show that the U.S. tourism sector has lost billions of dollars due to the drop in international visitors. Tourism-dependent cities like Las Vegas, New York, and Orlando are facing losses and rising unemployment rates. Hotels, travel agencies, and other tourism services have been heavily impacted as they no longer have a stable stream of visitors. In addition to the financial impact, this change is also causing major cities in the U.S. to face disruption in their social structure and labor market. Many tourism-related industries are having to find ways to adapt or change to fit the new situation, while governments are also grappling with how to revive the tourism sector after a long period of stagnation. One important lesson from this change is the powerful shift in global trends. While the U.S. used to be the dream destination, now migration trends are shifting. The fact that other countries are becoming more attractive to Americans reflects the economic struggles at home and the changes in people's living and working habits. This is also a warning for developed nations that, if they don't reform and improve the quality of life for their citizens, they may face significant emigration and the loss of talent and important resources. From this shift, businesses and governments need to reassess their development strategies, especially in attracting international tourists and retaining their citizens. Policy reforms, improvements in infrastructure, lowering living costs, and boosting domestic cultural and tourism activities will be key factors in restoring and developing the U.S. tourism sector. Overall, the current U.S. tourism situation faces a series of serious challenges, from the decrease in international visitors to the increase in migration by Americans. However, this is also an opportunity for the U.S. tourism industry to reform and adapt to the changes in global travel trends. We need to recognize that in the modern world, tourism isn't just about visiting a place. It's about creating a sustainable and thriving environment for both residents and visitors. The American dream, once a symbol of freedom, opportunity, and success, now faces a harsh reality. A country with a strong dollar but a cost of living that makes many feel vulnerable. This creates a major irony in the U.S. economy, especially when we compare the strength of the dollar with the skyrocketing prices of everyday necessities. While the U.S. dollar is strong on the international market, domestically, economic growth is not aligned with the affordability of its citizens. The cost of goods and services in the U.S., particularly in major cities like New York and Los Angeles, has soared. A typical example is the price of coffee in New York. The same cup of coffee in Mexico City can cost less than half of what it costs in New York. This makes many Americans, especially those with middle and lower incomes, feel as though their dollar no longer stretches as far, even within their own country. The American dream has long been a goal for generations, but now it has become a risky investment only the upper class can afford to pursue. A trip to the U.S. is no longer as simple as it used to be. It's now a significant financial decision, with living costs and housing prices in many areas rising dramatically. With high interest rates, prolonged inflation, and escalating living expenses, owning a home in major U.S. cities has become nearly impossible for many middle-class families. Many Americans have been forced to accept living in areas that no longer fit their financial conditions or face substantial debt. Basic services like healthcare, education, and public transportation also come at high prices, creating a significant burden on citizens. Particularly, with the housing shortage and rising unemployment rates, life in the U.S. is becoming increasingly tense and difficult for middle and low-income earners. One consequence of the high cost of living in the U.S. is the shift in international travel trends. The U.S. was once the dream destination for tourists from around the world, but now more and more tourists from countries like Europe, Canada, and Japan are turning to other destinations where the cost of living is lower, but they can still enjoy similar experiences. Countries like Portugal and Mexico are becoming increasingly popular choices for international travelers. With affordable prices and lower living costs, these countries are not only attracting U.S. tourists, but are also becoming ideal destinations for those who want to escape high prices in the U.S., while still finding comfortable living and vacation spaces. The irony of the American dream not only reflects the fluctuations in the national economy, but also serves as a warning about the fierce competition between countries to attract tourists and foreign residents. While the U.S. dollar remains strong, if the cost of living is not improved and solutions aren't found to alleviate the burden on citizens, the American dream may lose its appeal. For other countries, this is an opportunity to attract tourists and residents migrating from the U.S. Improving infrastructure, lowering taxes, and providing basic services at reasonable prices will help these countries become attractive options for those seeking a better life. The shift in travel and migration trends is not just a reflection of the economic situation, but also evidence of a shift in values and choices in the modern world. While the American dream still holds great appeal for many, the harsh current reality is driving many to seek a different dream, one that is more accessible and sustainable. The life of the American middle class, especially after retirement, is facing numerous challenges and paradoxes that were once unimaginable. A typical story is that of a retired couple living in Ohio. They dedicated their entire lives to work, contributed to pension funds, and saved for their retirement. But upon retiring, they realized that the money they had saved was only enough to rent a small room in Ohio. This is a heartbreaking reality for many middle-class Americans. Despite the strong U.S. dollar globally, their lives have become more fragile than ever before. However, this couple found a solution to their financial dilemma. They decided to move to Mexico. With their modest pension, they could afford to own a beautiful beachfront apartment in Mexico, where the cost of living, especially housing and medication, is much cheaper than in the U.S. They live a comfortable and fulfilling life with a higher quality of life, without worrying about money every day. This highlights a sad truth. While the US dollar is strong, ordinary Americans are struggling to maintain a stable life, especially after retirement. One of the greatest paradoxes in the lives of middle-class Americans is the contrast between the strong dollar and the rising cost of living. The dollar, despite its high value on the global market, fails to help American citizens ease their financial burdens domestically. A strong dollar globally can bring great benefits to the US economy, but it doesn't do much for middle-class families when housing, food, and essential services continue to rise in price. Like the retired couple, many Americans face the reality that they can't survive on their earnings even within the country they've spent their whole lives building. Owning a home, paying for healthcare services, or even covering basic monthly expenses has become a luxury for many, especially retirees living on pensions. The American dream, once seen as a symbol of freedom, opportunity, and success, has now become a luxury out of reach for ordinary people. To live a stable life, Americans are facing rising living costs, mounting debt, and growing social inequality. The dream of owning a home, enjoying vacations, or having a peaceful retirement is becoming increasingly difficult and nearly impossible for many middle-class Americans. Since the 2008 financial crisis, the middle class in America has continuously faced financial struggles. Pension programs are no longer sufficient to maintain a stable life, and healthcare costs have become an unavoidable burden. Many Americans, especially retirees, are seeking solutions such as moving abroad or finding additional income sources to make up for the financial shortfall. From the story of this retired couple, we can see that while the American dream is still a great ideal for many, it has become a challenge for middle-class Americans. Despite the strength of the US dollar, the cost of living in the US makes many feel as if the American dream has become a legend. The growing wealth gap and financial difficulties in the US are making the American dream harder to reach than ever before. For many, moving abroad to live or seeking countries with a lower cost of living is becoming a practical option. The US government and society need to face this reality and reform financial systems, healthcare insurance, and housing policies to help citizens maintain a stable life without facing financial insecurity during retirement. From stories like this, we can see that the American dream is not just a cultural concept, but also a significant financial challenge for many families in the US. In recent years, the image of the US on social media has starkly contrasted with the reality that tourists experience when visiting famous cities. On one hand, America is still promoted as a land of opportunity, glamour, and legendary tourist icons like Times Square in New York or the sparkling beaches of Los Angeles. On the other hand, horror travel pictures are gradually replacing those beautiful images as tourists no longer find the glamour they expected. The horror travel pictures from major cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco are making many reconsider their plans to visit the US. Instead of the vibrant, colorful portrayals of famous tourist spots, many travelers share images of streets flooded with tents, homeless people wandering everywhere, and areas overwhelmed by social issues. This stands in stark contrast to the promising advertising campaigns about a modern, wealthy, and clean America. This has led to widespread disappointment among tourists, who feel misled by the beautiful images in media and advertisements, only to find the reality doesn't meet their expectations. Some tourists have posted pictures of bustling areas, only to witness disorder, crime, and homelessness right on the famous boulevards. These images create a huge disparity between what first-time visitors anticipated and the reality they encountered. This situation not only affects the image of major cities, but also impacts the travel decisions of those who had planned their trips. For instance, many international tourists have canceled their trips after witnessing the reality in popular cities like Los Angeles. The reality here is far removed from the colorful, glittering depictions in advertising campaigns. Many travelers report feeling confused and disappointed when confronted with the harsh realities, especially as they witness rising poverty and social issues. The shift in America's image is not only a tourism issue, but also impacts the country's reputation in the eyes of the world. Many tourists have compared cities like Los Angeles with other destinations, such as Tokyo, where they experience a contrasting level of cleanliness, safety, and high-quality tourism services. This disparity has diminished America's appeal to international visitors. Historically, the image of the U.S. has been associated with pride in tourism. Major cities like New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles were iconic destinations representing modernity and prosperity. However, today, when tourists visit these cities, they are met with a very different reality. Streets full of homeless tents, widespread poverty, and increasing crime. The dominance of these social issues is gradually eroding America's image in the eyes of visitors and people worldwide. This has become even more apparent as social inequality, particularly the wealth gap, has become an increasingly prominent issue in major American cities. People living in wealthy neighborhoods enjoy luxury, while those in poor areas struggle with daily life, sometimes living in substandard housing with no basic living conditions. A notable example of the shift in tourist direction is when tourists from Tokyo started canceling their trips to Los Angeles after seeing the reality there. Many of them decided to change their tickets to Hawaii, a destination with a similar landscape but better living conditions and fewer social issues. This shift not only reflects the worrying state of the U.S. tourism industry, but also serves as a warning for major American cities to improve their image and living conditions if they want to maintain their appeal to international tourists. The contrast between the image America promotes and the reality tourists experience is gradually diminishing the country's attractiveness. The beautiful portrayals of America in advertising campaigns no longer reflect the true reality. And this is causing many tourists to rethink their travel decisions. The change in the national image, from a source of pride in tourism to a decline in the eyes of international tourists, is an issue that America must face and address. Major cities need to focus on resolving social issues, from poverty to crime, if they want to restore their beautiful image and attract tourists back. In recent years, obtaining a visa to the U.S. has become more difficult than ever, especially with changes in U.S. government policies. One of the most notable decisions was the U.S. Department of State's termination of the policy that allowed visa applications to be submitted in third-party countries. Previously, travelers could easily apply for a visa in other countries. But now, with these changes, the visa process has become more complicated, leading to significant frustration in the international travel community. The termination of the policy allowing visa applications in third-party countries has created many challenges for travelers from numerous countries, particularly those from Canada and Europe. In the past, applying for a visa in neighboring countries like Mexico or Canada was a convenient and time-saving option for many. However, with this new policy, travelers are now forced to return to their home countries to complete the procedure, which not only increases waiting times but also significantly raises visa application costs. In reality, the increased waiting times and costs have led many travelers to cancel their trips. Some tourists from Canada, Europe, and other regions were unable to plan their trips to the U.S. due to the more complicated and expensive visa process. This directly impacted the U.S. tourism industry, as the number of visitors dropped and tourism services became less attractive compared to other destinations. One of the most obvious consequences of the new policy is the reduction in international visitors to the U.S. As visa procedures become more difficult and time-consuming, many people have chosen other destinations instead of the U.S., especially when countries like Canada, Mexico, and many European nations still maintain simpler and faster visa policies. The decline in visitors has had a widespread impact on the U.S. tourism industry, especially on service industries directly related to tourists, such as hotels, restaurants, taxis, and entertainment services. Tourism businesses and workers in this sector have faced substantial revenue losses, as there are fewer international tourists to sustain operations. Restaurants, hotels, and travel service companies have had to find solutions to attract domestic tourists. But the decline of international visitors remains a major challenge for the U.S. tourism economy. The U.S. government introduced these changes to control illegal immigration and reduce the number of applicants applying for visas without the intention of visiting the U.S. for tourism or business purposes. However, this policy has left many travelers and tourism businesses feeling negatively impacted. While the U.S. government believes these changes help protect national security and better manage immigration, the reality is that the added administrative procedures and increased costs have forced many to abandon their travel plans. The decline in international visitors not only affects tourism businesses, but also negatively impacts the overall U.S. economy, as the tourism industry contributes significantly to the national GDP and creates millions of jobs for citizens. This means that many workers in the service industry, from hotel managers to taxi drivers and restaurant staff, will face unemployment or reduced incomes due to the absence of international tourists. The change in the U.S. visa policy has had far-reaching effects on the tourism industry and those working in the service sector. The increase in administrative procedures, longer waiting times, and higher visa application costs have led many travelers to cancel their trips, resulting in a decline in international visitors and negatively affecting the U.S. tourism economy. To revive the tourism industry and attract international visitors, the U.S. government must reconsider these policies and ensure a balance between national security and the development of the tourism industry. To revive the tourism industry and attract international visitors, the U.S. government needs to reconsider these policies, ensuring a balance between national security and tourism development. If you agree with this viewpoint, don't forget to leave a 1 in the comments. If you disagree, comment 0. Also, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos. Stay with us to follow the upcoming developments and continue the discussion on this issue. In the U.S., despite being known for its advanced healthcare system and world-leading medical technology, healthcare costs have become one of the biggest issues citizens face. Although many Americans are expected to have access to the best healthcare services, the reality is vastly different. Rising costs of medical treatment and medication have made many families struggle to cope, with some even opting to go abroad for more affordable healthcare. This raises a significant question about the effectiveness of the healthcare system in a developed country like the U.S. The U.S. takes pride in its developed healthcare system and advances in treating severe illnesses. Yet healthcare costs have become a major barrier for many people. In a country where the cost of medication, basic healthcare, and surgeries can reach thousands of dollars, many people simply cannot afford these services. This has led to a situation where many Americans are unable to access the necessary healthcare. While health insurance can help reduce some costs, for those without insurance or with inadequate coverage, medical expenses remain a heavy burden. These costs not only prevent many people from accessing healthcare services, but also force them to choose between paying for basic living expenses like housing and food, or paying for their health. People who cannot afford healthcare services have been turning to temporary solutions, such as buying cheaper medication and healthcare services in other countries. With domestic healthcare costs so high, many Americans have chosen to go abroad for medical treatment and medication at lower prices. One popular destination is Tijuana, Mexico, where affordable medical services are available, and the quality is comparable to hospitals in the U.S. Doctors and hospitals in Tijuana offer medical services ranging from consultations and surgeries to buying medications, all at significantly lower costs than in the U.S. This not only helps citizens save a large amount of money, but also highlights the failure of the U.S. healthcare system. Despite significant medical advancements, the high costs make it inaccessible for many people, and instead of relying on the domestic healthcare system, they have to turn to other countries for better care at more reasonable prices. Despite the advances in technology and treatments, the reality is that the growing cost of healthcare has become one of the main reasons why people are unable to access these services. Hospitals and healthcare facilities in the U.S. may offer advanced treatments, but the high prices make them a luxury for many citizens. The health insurance system is not always enough to protect citizens, as many face co-payments, insurance that doesn't fully cover costs, or services that are not covered at all. This is particularly true for those without health insurance or those whose insurance is insufficient to cover the high medical costs. Therefore, while the U.S. healthcare system is still regarded as one of the most advanced, the issue of cost and unequal access to services remains a major obstacle. This has led many Americans to ask why they should stay in a country where healthcare has become a financial burden when they could seek easier living abroad. With rising healthcare costs, Americans, particularly those in the middle and lower classes, are losing faith in the domestic healthcare system. This not only leaves them feeling unprotected in a modern society, but also raises questions about fairness in accessing essential services. Healthcare and insurance policies need to change to ensure that all citizens have access to affordable healthcare without having to choose between healthcare and other basic needs. the reality of healthcare costs in the US is gradually tarnishing the image of a country with a leading healthcare system. While the US offers highly developed healthcare services, the high costs have become a major barrier for many people. The failure of this system not only makes it difficult for Americans to access healthcare services, but also creates inequality within society. Without strong and effective reforms, this issue will continue to be a burden for citizens and push Americans abroad in search of better healthcare services at more affordable prices. The American dream, once a symbol of freedom, opportunity, and prosperity, has become a source of motivation for millions both in the US and abroad. However, in recent years, belief in this dream has started to decline. Social, political, and economic instability has caused many Americans to feel lost and no longer welcomed in their own country. One of the biggest reasons for this shift is the growing political division within American society. Political debates and conflicts are not only happening during elections, but have also spread throughout communities, causing instability and disunity. Issues such as civil rights, freedom of speech, and immigration policies have polarized American society, increasing feelings of insecurity among many citizens. In addition, gun violence remains a persistent issue, causing many people to feel unsafe living in the US. Although mass shootings have become an inevitable part of life in America, the lack of decisive action from the government has left citizens feeling frustrated and helpless. Events such as school shootings, mall shootings, and gun violence in neighborhoods have heightened concerns about personal safety. This, along with complicated bureaucratic procedures, has created an environment where many people feel unwelcome and unable to find stability or peace. With rising insecurity and increasing living costs, a reverse migration trend is emerging. Instead of only people from other countries wanting to immigrate to the US, now many Americans are looking for other places to live. Places with lower living costs, greater safety, and better financial accessibility. Countries like Mexico, Portugal, and Costa Rica are becoming popular choices for Americans seeking a new life. Away from the stress and high costs of the US, Mexico, with its significantly lower cost of living, is one of the favorite destinations for Americans looking for a simpler life. Cities like Tijuana and Puerto Vallarta have become home to large American communities. Portugal and Costa Rica have also emerged as attractive destinations, not only because of the lower cost of living, but also because of their friendly policies towards foreigners and good security. This shows that the change in belief about the American dream is not only a result of economic factors, but also reflects an increasingly insecure and divided society. It's important to note that many Americans are leaving not because they hate their country, but because of the insecurity and high cost of living. They are not running from a society they love. Rather, they are seeking a better life elsewhere, where they can feel safer and live a stable life without the burden of financial strain. They long for a future where they don't have to face gun violence, societal division, or exorbitant living costs. This trend also reflects the failure of the American dream to meet the real needs of the people. The dream once symbolized prosperity and freedom, but when these values are no longer present in daily life, and society becomes divided and insecure, the dream loses its appeal to many. The psychology and changing belief in the American dream reflect a sad reality. A country that was once a model of freedom and opportunity is now facing significant challenges in security, politics, and economics. The feeling of insecurity, social division, gun violence, and difficulties accessing basic services have led many citizens to lose faith in the future of the country. The reverse migration trend, with Americans seeking new homes in other countries, is a clear sign that the American dream is no longer something many people still aspire to. Instead of continuing to try and maintain a dream that no longer exists, many Americans are looking for an easier, safer, and more accessible life elsewhere. In recent years, an increasing number of Americans, particularly retirees, have decided to leave their home country in search of a more stable and easier life in other nations. One of the biggest reasons for this shift is the high cost of living, especially healthcare costs in the US, which makes many feel that they cannot maintain a comfortable life after retirement. The story of a 65-year-old retired sailor living in Lisbon is a typical example of this trend. After retiring, This former sailor decided to move to Lisbon, Portugal, rather than staying in the US. He chose Lisbon because private healthcare insurance in Portugal is much cheaper than healthcare costs in the US. In the US, healthcare costs are one of the biggest burdens for retirees. Although healthcare services in the US are of high quality, they are very expensive, especially for those without good insurance. So, he decided to look for another country with a good healthcare system and lower costs, while also enjoying life in a romantic and peaceful city like Lisbon. His story is evidence of the growing trend of Americans moving to other countries to retire, not only seeking financial savings but also desiring a more stable and less stressful life. Not only Lisbon, but countries like Mexico, Costa Rica, and Portugal have become popular destinations for Americans looking for a place to start a new life after retirement. One of the key factors driving this trend is the change in Americans' consumption habits. In the past, many Americans thought living in the US after retirement was a given because the US was always considered the land of opportunity, with a strong economy and endless growth opportunities. However, with rising living costs, particularly healthcare costs and social instability, many have realized that they can enjoy a better life in other countries where living expenses are much lower. Moreover, with the development of technology and the rise of remote work, many Americans can easily work from other countries without worrying about quitting their jobs or losing their income. This allows them to move more freely and search for a new life where they feel safer and can maintain a high quality of life without the heavy financial concerns. The movement of Americans is not just about tourism, but also about seeking a more stable life where they can enjoy a simpler existence. Moving to countries with a lower cost of living and better quality of life has become a strong trend in recent years. This is not just a geographical shift, but also a shift in how people view life. Countries like Mexico, Portugal, and Costa Rica have become ideal choices for Americans looking for a comfortable and stable place to live. With policies that are friendly to foreigners, low living costs, and a high quality of life, these countries have become attractive destinations for retirees. Furthermore, these countries offer quality healthcare services at much lower costs than in the US, creating an ideal living environment for those who do not want to face financial burdens in retirement. The shift of Americans seeking to retire abroad reflects a profound change in how people view life and their future. The main reasons for this migration include high living costs, especially healthcare, and the search for a more stable and secure life. However, this does not mean they hate their homeland. It means they want a simpler life where they can enjoy their retirement years without worrying about finances. This change is part of a larger trend in American society, as more and more people are beginning to realize that the American dream does not always provide the ideal life they once hoped for. When the US co-hosts the 2026 World Cup alongside Canada and Mexico, this sporting event will not only showcase athletic talent and global excitement for soccer, but also serve as an opportunity for the US to prove its image on the world stage. However, amidst social tensions, political polarization, and stringent immigration policies, hosting the World Cup could become a crucial test of how open and welcoming the country really is. The 2026 World Cup will attract millions of international visitors to the US, offering the country a chance to assert itself as a premier global destination. However, the reality is that obtaining a US visa is currently not an easy task. Increasingly strict visa regulations, long waiting times, and high costs have caused many travelers, especially from other countries, to reconsider their plans to attend major events in the US. With the complex procedures and long waiting times for visa approval, many people will feel discouraged and may decide to watch the matches in other countries like Mexico or Canada. If soccer fans cannot obtain a timely visa for the US, or face unnecessary obstacles during the visa application process, this will directly affect America's image in the eyes of the international community. One of the key factors that needs to be considered is the visa process. The US has long been known for its strict visa procedures, and this could become a significant issue when a large number of international visitors flock to the country for the World Cup. While other countries have easier visa policies that may enable fans to attend without too many barriers, the US could lose potential visitors simply due to complex administrative regulations. With such issues, many visitors may opt to watch the matches in other countries without the hassle of applying for a visa. This would directly impact the number of international tourists coming to the U.S. and reduce America's appeal as a tourist destination in the future. The current situation not only reflects issues with administrative procedures and visas, but also represents the growing disillusionment many people have with the American dream. America's image is gradually being tarnished by issues such as social inequality, gun violence, and political polarization. While America was once seen as a symbol of freedom and opportunity, many now feel that the American dream is no longer as powerful or attractive as it once was. As the world watches, the 2026 World Cup will be an opportunity for the U.S. to show itself as an open and welcoming country, but it also presents a significant challenge to reaffirm the nation's image. If current issues, particularly immigration policies and visa procedures, are not improved, this event could become an unsuccessful test for the American dream. The future of the American dream is facing significant challenges, especially with the 2026 World Cup approaching. With issues surrounding the visa process and social instability, the American dream will be tested not only through immigration policies, but also through the country's ability to maintain an image of friendliness and openness to international visitors. Without substantial changes, the U.S. could miss the opportunity to reaffirm its position as an attractive destination for global tourists, and the American dream will continue to be a distant aspiration for many. If you had the chance to leave the U.S. in search of an easier life, would you choose to leave or stay? Would you look for countries with lower living costs and safer environments? Or would you stay to continue facing the challenges in this country? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this video sparked some thoughts, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next analyses. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.